This is Emmett Smith, and you're listening to 3 Point Conversion.
What's going on? It's your man, Mr. Controversy. Did you miss me? Yes, we're here live in LA for Super Bowl 56 at Radio Row, and I got my guy all the way to the left, Rue.
What's going on?
We have a special guest. We have Mr. Thomas Dimitroff, not Mitroff, Dimitroff.
A lot of confusion out there.
How's it going, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I love you guys' energy.
Appreciate you. First of all, I got to start off. We seen something online about you starting a show for GMs.
Mm-hmm.
And can you expound about that? I think that's a great idea because there's a lot of questions about GMs, especially today with everything going on. So can you expound on that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Thanks for asking. Last year when I got fired, I bought myself a Sprinter van. This sounds really odd, but I got it all jacked up and souped up, and I thought, I am traveling around the country. And then the light bulb went on, and I thought, wait a minute, this is my opportunity to professionally develop. I booked 16 meetings, so 16 general managers traveled around the league, starting with Jason Light down in Tampa and all across the country, and interviewed these guys, did a lot of B-roll, kind of like Anthony Bourdain-esque, like B-roll in restaurants. The focus, however, was 45-minute interviews talking about team building, talking about leadership, talking about diversity. Each one of those, I tried to get an underrepresented rising stars on the set with us. So we would be talking about whatever we were talking about from a leadership standpoint, and they would bring someone on the set, and we'd talk to them for 5 or 7 minutes because I'm a big believer in getting those names out, getting those faces out. The ones that deserve to be out there right now, those are the ones that, and I'm a big fan and really close with Rod Graves, so I was kind of working with him on the approach with the Fritz Pollard to try to help as much as I can.
That's amazing stuff because, when you talk about the life of a GM, the off season, that's when you guys really have to work your magic. And things like the draft in the off season, things of that sort. Can you take us through that process of a GM, like day one, after the season? What's your main goal as a GM?
Well, look, you start focusing on free agency and the draft. It is about build. And the interesting thing is, when you're still in the playoffs, you're a little bit less focused, of course. You're still thinking long term. But man, if you're dabbling around on that, not making the playoffs, you are 100% focused on what the next step is. And look, it's not for long league. We know that in all of us. We were talking the other day. I was just talking over there with Adam Shine. We were talking about Les Snead. Les Snead's approach, although a lot of people throw darts because of his trading away of draft picks, he is a believer in not sitting on his hands. You cannot sit on your hands. We can go all the way back to 11 with Julio Jones, but anything that I've ever done, it's not been flippant or cavalier. You got to go forward, right? You can't just sit back here and dabble in it. And so I do believe that's a big thing, and I think for the GMs that are really focused on team building, they know it's here and now.
So this, I guess the last 2 seasons has been different. Or at least from my perspective, I don't know the ins and outs of being a GM, but it seems like now when they hire a GM, before they hire a GM, they've already started the process of hiring a coach. And then when they hire the GM, now it's been narrowed down to 3 coaches, and they let the GM decide. What is your take on that? Because I don't know if they were doing that beforehand, but now they're making it known. So how can you be successful? If you're the GM, that's your job to pick who you want, because usually we know the GM want their guys. But if they're already starting the process of hiring or interviewing coaches before they hire you, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that, to be honest with you. I love the idea of having a strong, stout general manager who is there, who understands collaboration, because that is today's world, right? It's no longer pounding your fist on the table and running roughshod one way or another. It is collaboration through and through. To that point, sometimes these owners and their search group, which is really odd, I get it at times, they start doing some background work, and then they bring forward the 3, 4, or 5 guys to the new GM that's hired. Arthur did that with me, quite honestly, with the Mike Smith deal. Mm-hmm. And Mike Smith ended up being, he was 3-time coach. Mike Smith was a very good football coach. I know we didn't get to the Super Bowl with him. We were one catch away when
49ers.
Oh my God! Remember? Man. And Navarro Bowman admitted that he interfered with Roddy in that play. But that's a whole other thing.
Broke my heart.
It did mine as well. But my point on it is, look, as long as you are there as a general manager in the stretch and making sure that it is up to you. I remember that day when we were going through the process with Mike, and I was a neophyte general manager, right? I get in there, get all these interviews going on. It's really, really important to make sure that that head coach and the GM are in sync in a certain way. They don't have to be best friends. Luckily had great relationships with both men, Mike Smith and Dan Quinn. Mm-hmm. And it was very important for us to be candid, direct on so many things. There are other GMs and head coaches out there with really interestingly sort of hesitant personalities and relationships with each other. I don't think that's a recipe for success.
Another question I had, as far as being a GM, you have to evaluate talent. I know that's the scout's job, but you, as a GM, make the calls. You make the final say-so. And one guy I got to point to, Matt Ryan, in 2008. I believe that was your first pick as a general manager of the Atlanta Falcons, and you're just coming from New England. Did you see something Brady-ish in him? I know he wore the number 12, and it's the resemblance of the GOAT Brady, but did you see anything in Matt Ryan?
It's so funny you say that, because I definitely did. Having an opportunity to be around Tom Brady and see the parallels with Matt, it was more, just the presence, stand tall in the pocket. Now, I would say, would never do it differently. I think Matt Ryan is a Hall of Famer. He's done great things, and I know it's tough. Community, there's some ups and downs like we all have in life. Matt Ryan has done some really special things. Tom Brady had that element to him where he was so focused. Everything was about football. As glam as he looked, and his wife and all of that, he stayed focused. Matt Ryan, whether you like him or whether you think it's time, he has done a really good job focusing on it. There was the main parallel. Again, a little bit different personalities, but that was the main parallel. And, we can go back and forth about picks, right? Matt Ryan, in the end, was such an important part for that organization, going from where it was value-wise, quite honestly, and where Arthur is right now with his value, which is amazing in this league right now. But let's talk real. And I was on with Domino and Cellini the other day, and I'm like, when you pick players, it's not an exact science, right? We can go back and we can talk about Vic Beasley. Vic Beasley, when we talk about ultimate mistakes, I loved Vic. We all loved him. We weren't making a mistake on the player. When I go back into any of these guys, this is really interesting. I could go back to Rashid Hageman. I could go back to Vic Beasley. I could go to Jalen Collins, and I could go to Tack McKinley. Interestingly enough, gentlemen, think about this. Those are not offensive players with two defensive coordinator experienced aficionados. I've tried to really dig into that and wonder, why did those mistakes happen with defensive coaches with me? I put my hand up. That's ultimately my mistake. It's an organizational thing, and you guys know that. If you want to expound on a GM, you're not just pounding your fists again saying you want this and that. I have to pour through, hundreds of reports, thousands of reports, of course, and do my own evaluation, which, in general manager land, just so you guys know, it doesn't matter. I can talk in the meetings. Every GM in this league, but for maybe Mickey Loomis at New Orleans and Howie Roseman at Philly, all came to the league through evaluation. And we all think we can go toe-to-toe with anyone in the league on that side. It's the other decisions that become complicated. Do you put more money into Julio Jones? I mean, I know there's a lot of discussion. Did we do what we did the right thing? No, it was a mistake on re-signing Vic Beasley. We learn these things, which is a perfect segue into, and I'm sorry for continuing here, people ask me, are you still interested in going to the next team? Is that of interest to you, and why aren't there more second-time GMs? It's one of the few businesses that don't allow second-time GMs for the most part. I mean, how much you learn. Jerry Reese, Rick Smith, Scott, there's some guys out there who are great football people who aren't getting second chances. And that's something that is really interesting to me, why that is, because they learn and they grow through their mistakes.
I never noticed that, thinking about that now, that you don't see a lot of times second chance, the GMs get that second chance. I didn't think about that.
Well, right. You see a lot of head coaches.
Yeah,
right?
you do.
And they've done really good jobs, a lot of successful guys.
But see, going into that, okay, so I'm a Chicago Bears fan. Y'all know I am. But, and I'm not singling him out, but it's again, with Ryan Pace, I thought the players in Chicago he chose were great. Now, he might have gave too much, he don't know how to negotiate, but either or, he got the right players that he wanted. He went after them. But then the coach, it didn't mesh. So how does that dynamic work when, yes, you picked the players, like you said, you got Vic Beasley. I mean, everybody thought he was going to be a big, you got Beast, you got Tack, you got all these players, but it doesn't work with the coaches. And yes, you're going to say that's on me, but is it?
It's a great question, and these are the nuances of being a general manager and co-team builders with a head coach. You get a guy, and this ultimately happens on the defensive side. That's their background. So as a GM, you have to be open-minded to having really good conversations and flip it over to the offense as well. I mean, when you have an offensive-minded guy, he's going to have strong feelings. Sean McVay is going to have strong feelings about quarterbacks. With Les Snead, they're trying to work together. You know, an owner is going to understand that you have a guy who has a big deal of experience. You know, so you have to walk through that with your head coach. It's not tiptoeing at all. It's having great conversations and really digging in. In the end, however, if you're in charge of acquisitions, which I was, however we got there, this is where I say ultimately it is up to the general manager. Les Snead, you guys have seen what he's done with the Rams. He's traded away a lot of those early picks. They've decided to focus on the middle of the round, and they've done a hell of a job there. They've given up those first, and you know what his reasoning is on that is, which is tough, because anything short of the Super Bowl with Les, he's going to get his darts thrown at him. Mm-hmm. His feeling is get known commodities. There have been a lot of mistakes. You look across the last modern day, since I've been in here since 2008, you look at so many mistakes in that first round because you're not sure. Yes, you know the warts and all of some of those big-time players you're bringing in, but you know everything about them. And Les had said to me, look, if someone falls asleep in a meeting and we get agitated by that, that's our fault because we know what we're getting with, as long as they're performing on the field. And I think that's a fascinating approach.
Yeah. Another question I have to ask is hot in the NFL. The hiring of black coaches. We're not seeing it. Lovey got it. Congrats to Lovey. Of course I'm Bears, like I said, so I'm happy for that. But either or, we're not seeing it as much. They try to do the Rooney Rule, and it was in good faith at then, but we don't see it now. When it comes to coaches, is that more of the GM or is it the owners or organization? And then why haven't we seen that? Why we don't see black coaches? There's only 2 right now, I believe. Yeah. So why is that?
Okay, so first of all, yes, I agree. Thank God that Lovey got back in. And I was talking to Nick Caserio last night. I asked him about it. I said, why Lovey? And he was very positive about Lovey's Lovey's 63 now, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not like he's 42. He's got age and he's got experience, and I think they need that with that organization. Right. So good for Lovey. As far as your question about hiring African-American head coaches and where they are with the underrepresented approach to everything, that's a big question. Is that ultimately up to the owner or is it up to the general manager? I think it's up to everyone within the organization. I think it's the endorsement by the owner to say, you go your way and you be very mindful, GM, of what you're looking at and what you need for this organization. And prior to Lovey getting hired, to having one minority head coach, I guess
African, because you had
African American. Who do we have? We have
Salah.
Yeah. But that's quite outrageous, and I get that. And I had alluded to the fact earlier that I have a really good relationship with Rod Graves, and we talk about it quite often. He's got a big job. Fritz Pollard Alliance is a big job, and part of the big job is making sure that he has his list ready to disseminate to all the owners and the general managers and the presidents, the guys that are ready. And that's what we've talked about. Don't just put anyone out there. It is really important for the process to make sure, and I thought he did a great job this year. Seeing Ryan Poles get his job, we see Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. I mean, that is have you guys really interesting guy.
Yeah, that's great.
I sat down when I was doing that GM project very quickly, I sat down with Andrew Barry and I sat down with Kwesi in Cleveland in my project. I got up after 5 minutes with Kwesi and Andrew, and I thought to myself, one of these 2 cats is going to be the commissioner in 20 years. I was that impressed.
Wow.
I loved it. So I'm happy. I'm happy for those guys.
And before we get out of here real quick, we're here for the Super Bowl. Yeah. As a GM going into the Super Bowl, what do you tell your team, or is it just the same thing? Just keep doing the same thing you've been doing?
Well, I think there's a very, very interesting difference here. You have the Bengals who are happy to be here. Les Snead and I were talking. We both got shut out in our Super Bowls back in 16 for me, and Les, when were the Rams last in?
2018.
18. Yeah. And you're happy to be there as a GM because you're fine. Like I had been a part of 2 with the Patriots, but when you're the guy and you're sitting there along with the head coach, you want to win this. Now Les and Sean, they're so acutely focused, and they're not just happy to be here. You can tell. Yeah. And that's what I think is going to be the difference maker in the game.
Okay, 20 seconds. I promise you. I just have to ask you this. Patriots, playing the Patriots. What was it? Through
2016. February of 2017.
Man, like, I just want to know I know you all were sick, but like when I went into work, I was working at the office, and when I went into work, everybody was looking at me. Everybody was quiet. I thought the CEO was walking around because it was so quiet. Everybody was in their best behavior, but it was sick. Like, how do you bounce back from that?
Well, and that's a tough question. I mean, we got in 2 days later, and this was really cool. We hated it. I mean, it was gut-wrenching. It's still gut-wrenching.
Oh, man.
And literally, I have a really good relationship with Arthur Blank. Again, I didn't like getting fired, and I didn't, whatever.
Right.
We can talk about that forever. But Arthur and I, we have a really good relationship. And I text him randomly when big losses happen doesn't just have to be football. Mm-hmm. And my point to him was, it always sticks in your, it sticks in your craw, right? It's tough. How do you get over that? 2 or 3 days later, we had coaches putting their hands up. Look, I should have helped Dan during that time. We should have run, kick. There was full admission by the staff. It's one of the reasons why, the Falcons came back in 17. I mean, quite honestly, if we didn't screw it up down the stretch when we tried to toss to Julio 3 times,
goal line.
we might have
That's what I
gotten up
wanna
to
hear.
Minnesota, and it might have been a different situation, right?
Yeah.
So, but we got too deep into the playoffs after what normally doesn't happen. So
Right.
Dan did a hell of a job with that.
Well, all right, man. It was great talking to Thomas Dimitroff. Glad you came. Make sure y'all continue to follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be back later on.
God.